TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark savage stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Yo, what up? You heard the man. I'm TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. Excited and delighted to be with you guys again today. Got an awesome show planned for you all. I want to say a quick shout out, as always, to all the patrons, everybody supporting, man. You guys keep this thing going. There's value in this podcast that you guys are finding, and you guys are sharing it and supporting financially. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, each and every one of you guys. I think we're up to 71 patrons right now. That's crazy. It's blowing my mind. It really is. Thank you guys for all the support. I want to thank the latest patron that we have. It just signed up yesterday, Patrick O'Leary. Welcome to the fold, brethren. If you guys want to support my work and you want to see more podcasts and more music and see this channel grow, all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah, and there you can sign up at any level of giving to support. You get extra podcasts, extra interviews, my full discography, which is 10 plus albums, all of my new music. Every time I get done with a song, it's going straight to Patreon before it comes out on an album. So there's been songs there that's probably been there almost a year now, that songs I've been done, and it hasn't been released to the general public until an album's ready. Well, the album is ready and it's available now. I'm doing the pre-order special and all that stuff. I'm giving away a big wall tapestry. Like, everybody who pre-orders the album will be in a drawing to get this cover art wall tapestry, being in a drawing for that. Also, every copy will be autographed, so I'm autographing all the copies. We're also doing a album release party, April the 20th, Mobile, Alabama. If you guys want to get in on that, you guys want to come hang out and celebrate with us, it's going to be fun. I got friends traveling. I like to say 8 hours to be here. I got some friends coming down from Orlando, and they wouldn't miss it for the world. So I'm excited to build with friends and family. Anybody who wants to get in on that, the info is on the flyer at my website, TruthSeekah.com. And yeah, it's a free show. So all you got to do is pay for your room and board or whatever to get here, and gas money or whatever, and the show's free. You don't even have to buy a ticket. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, thank you guys for supporting my work via Patreon. Let's see, I got a new album coming out. I got a new video that's released, and this is stuff you guys got to check out. Check out my new video, because a lot of synchronicities, a lot of stuff involved in that, and I'm going to do a video where I just go into detail explaining that video and breaking it down. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for supporting my work. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. And all the donations too. Man, you guys are awesome. Today's podcast, we're going to get into UFOs, aliens, spirituality, all that good stuff. And I like to talk to people who have had experiences and encounters. And so hopefully our guest today is going to be able to bring some of that to the table. It's different when, like, I listen to a lot of hip hop artists, and some of them just talk about the stuff that I talk about in my music because they've studied it. And it kind of loses the magic for me. Even though it's cool, it kind of loses the magic because, like, you ask them about the stuff they're talking about and they've never experienced it. You know what I'm saying? They're talking about UFOs and aliens and summoning UFOs on the top of Mount Shasta and all kind of stuff like this. And you're like, I want to get this person on my podcast to tell me about this stuff. Like, I'm really wanting to dig into this stuff, and you get them on and they're like, no, I've never experienced anything. You're like, dang, you talk about meditating and Kundalini yoga, but you've never done it. That's crazy. So hopefully our guest today, which is a hip hop artist by the name of AllItIz, maybe he's had some encounters because he talks about a lot of this stuff, conspiracy research and stuff in his music. Welcome to the show, brother. What's going on?
TruthSeekah, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. And well, as far as some actual experiences going, we might be a little lacklusting on that story, but let's
well, there's something that got you into it, man. I mean, you know, I know we, you know what I'm saying, we just did a song together. Everybody go check out this song. We did a remix to one of your songs, and it's a beautiful track. Is it on? I think it's on iTunes right now, isn't it?
Spotify, iTunes. It should be on all social platforms everywhere. It's called "We're Not Alone." You blessed me with 2 verses in the beginning, and really dropped some knowledge too, to where even a person like me that is, had some experience in doing some research. I had to take some of your lyrics, learn them, and go type it in and see what I could find, and even ask you, what was that type of ship you were saying? I had to type.
Maybe it's just my maybe you just couldn't understand me. It's my speech or something. But I know you've heard of
the cloud ships.
You've heard of that though, right?
Speaking of Mount Shasta, definitely. Yeah. I was just telling a buddy, if you want to go see most likely some genuine UFOs, Google that and you'll see a few entering Mount Shasta, which I've heard are Andromeda and others are from there, but that's all speculation.
Yeah, man. We're talking about, Project Camelot. I know you mentioned in that song, you mentioned Kerry Cassidy, you mentioned Project Camelot. It's always good to pay homage to the people who kind of bring this information out. And I think you found my work through my interview with her, right?
Absolutely.
So it's really cool. And I asked her about the Steven Greer stuff. You know what I'm saying? When I got into ufology, Steven Greer was one of the guys who was making conscious contact, and I loved the work that he was putting out. Speaking of Mount Shasta, there's a beautiful video of him where you could see like every star in the sky, man, and there's stars that move and stop on a dime and then do all kind of weird aerial phenomenon at Mount Shasta. That there's video from Steven Greer, so that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Greer, he's also gets mentioned in that song. If you were into this stuff and you want to start the Disclosure Project video, testimony from credible sources, which still to this day, I have some opinions about Steven Greer too. I don't think that all, aliens or crafts are positive. Yeah. That would just be like saying that, I mean, we're not all positive. And if we were to evolve even 5,000 years from now, are we all going to be positive? I think we have that potential, and I think everybody does have that potential, but this is a universe of chaos. And I think we will see negatives and opposites throughout. And so Steven Greer, I just wish he would kind of adjust his message and say he's open to the fact that there could be, because there is a lot of experience, a lot of testimony, and it contradicts a lot of what he offers. But that being said, he is still one of the best people to get into. I think if you're just getting into this, the Disclosure Project just shocked me. It floored me because my whole thing when getting into this is after a while, I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. I wanted to hear it from military scientists. It had to be somebody with a little bit of credibility. And sure enough, you go down that panel, let alone the 250 people that weren't on that panel publicly. And then start doing your research on each of those names. That took me a year in itself to go down that list. And sure enough, we could have some people working for the government there giving disinformation. Most likely, maybe even half the panel was filled with disinformation people. But
If one of them
one story, that's the
was
thing,
telling the truth, yeah.
So when I go to try to wake people up, like the friends, the family, where you're trying to just give them the quick, here, check this out kind of thing. That's what I say. If you're into this stuff, start the Disclosure Project video, testimony from credible sources, search all the names to see what's important. And then we get into Project Camelot. And I think that's a level up from the Disclosure Project, because you do start getting more out of the specifics, more into spirituality, more into nefarious stuff, a dark agenda, where Greer kind of kept it even keel. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to kind of get into Kerry Cassidy a little bit, by the time I got to her, this is it once again, it just floored me. If I was making music at the time, all I wanted to do was get into this stuff and check out all these videos, because it was just 3 hours of jaw-dropping stuff. And then, you start watching these videos, and are these people lying? Okay, maybe he's lying. Oh, the next is maybe he's lying, or maybe this person's genuine. Maybe this person's genuine. You have hundreds of people to kind of do that truth seeking with, and to kind of use your discernment and weigh your options. But that's a real tricky thing we have in this community is, who is true? If you hold somebody as true, are you holding it true because of facts or because of faith or because of, it's tricky. And to hold a belief system in hands or to have it be changed can happen a lot. And the foundation of our belief systems often gets shooken up a lot if we're doing the right things, I think, in this truth-seeking search, to say that again.
Yeah, there's so many people, and it's kind of sucks, though, but I guess that's with everything. You got to figure out who's making it up. I mean, it's with every circle, though, especially when someone brings something to the table and has little to no proof. You know what I'm saying? It's just a theory or whatever. That's what I liked about Greer, is that they're going out doing the CE5 initiative, like going out under open skies, making contact, and ships are appearing, and people are getting in touch with spirituality and yoga and chanting and drum circles and stuff like that. And Greer and James Gilliland, they're kind of one and the same for me early on. I love James. I love his work.
Yeah, I'd like to get out to his ranch one day.
I know, right? It's still a dream.
That's a guaranteed contact vacation right there.
Yeah,
you just
that's a dream.
Go out to that ranch and you're going to see something.
Yep.
And that's incredible in itself too. And I mean, those are the stuff that really was waking me up. When you get to because you get to those corners, the James corners, the Stephen corner, no matter what, there's something there. There's something there that is not normal, that is not being told to us by our normal, governments or whatever it is. And that was enough for me to keep me at this state and to add to the fire, which is being awake and kind of, just finding that stuff out.
That's part of my thing too, because I've seen some crazy stuff, man. Like I've spent hours out there meditating and I've made contact. I really have. I've seen ships. I've summoned ships. With groups of people, crazy stuff that just blows my mind. But I wanted to see it just to not to prove to people, but to prove to me that something was going on and try to get to the bottom of it for myself. But one of the things I look at is with these people who claim to be able to pinpoint everything that's going on. There's a big level of skepticism there for me, because I've seen so much stuff and I still can't tell you what's going on. I can't, and we listen to interviews with people who claim to have it figured out, and I'm skeptical of that now, just because I've been so, and maybe that's arrogance. Maybe that's saying, okay, you've been so far, and so you don't think nobody's been further than you. You don't think nobody's made more contact than you, or whatever the case is. But to say these are the beings from, Orion, from this star system, and this is what they do, this is what they look like. It gets, I don't know, man. So you have to ask yourself, who's making it up? Who's had the experiences and the encounters, but then they're just building on top of it. It gets fishy, man. You know what I'm saying?
It's tricky. And I mean, we're talking, to bring it back to Kerry Cassidy, someone I love and I admire. She is honestly the most courageous person in this field because she's fearless. But I feel like there is a problem there because she has so much information, so much stories, and a lot of people she holds dear to herself, and some contacts that she, holds dear to herself, that kind of gets the story a little muddy. And we do want to try to, follow people and take their word for it. But if you start doing that, you enter a dangerous game because we don't always have the facts. We're not, getting the testimony from these people personally, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't entertain it. We shouldn't run it through our belief system and see if, what the discernment does to it. And that's another thing I wanted to eventually get into is a big thing for me, was more spiritual, was finding out that I think we all, as people, everyone, especially people that are in this, community, have a lie detector in their body. Like literally, we can detect lies and we can detect truth through our heart, through our soul. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have a belief system that will force us into a belief that maybe isn't right. And we're always changing. But I think when it really comes down to it, if you look in and you ask yourself, I want to find truth and I don't want to be deceived, you do start to get a better, clearer picture. I feel like, because I feel like, the truth will speak to you. Yep. And that could be explained, I bet, in many spiritual ways through God, Christ, any amount of ways. But I feel like it is a very personal thing. And a lot of the searching we do is personal. Definitely,
man. There was a guy who got me into a lot of this stuff, especially coming from like a biblical perspective. Like I was in church. I was a Christian evangelist, man, doing my music and telling my story, traveling at churches and stuff. And when I started having these encounters, man, and to be a psalmist or a poet, you're going to write about what you're going through. So my music started shifting a little bit, right? I started and I knew I couldn't just jump right in. I started just seasoning in it a little bit and putting stuff here and there, in it that maybe people could pick up on, until I just went all the way in it head over heels. And it's weird because putting that information out there in the music and talking about it, people they don't, everybody has a preconceived notion, man, you know what I'm saying? And it scares people, especially talking about being abducted and stuff like that, like some of those scary excuse me, cases that we've heard back in the day. And one thing I was going to ask you, because I've brought this up, I think I asked Kerry about it, I always ask James, everybody who I have on, we don't really hear the term abduction anymore. I don't really hear people coming out saying, look, I was abducted by aliens, they picked me up in the field, they did all kind of horrible experiments on me. A lot of the times, they still kind of seep through on coast to coast, but a lot of times you can totally tell that the stories, they're making it up as they go. What would you say about the whole abduction phenomenon? Because now we're hearing contactee, experiencer. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I'm the one I initiated contact. I've always had a fascination, and the CE5 Initiative, which is a big thing now. What would you say about abduction versus contactee now?
Well, actually, kind of connected to that, a buddy of mine who's a pretty big skeptic and a real big skeptic, and but is very interested in this stuff, sent me an article that basically said since the dawn of cell phones, sightings have gone down substantially. And this can be actually backed up through MUFON, even though that's not the greatest, and other sources, that we substantially have less sightings since cell phones have come in. And my answer was to him, well, I was like, if they want to be seen, they'll be seen. If they want to be cloaked, they'll be cloaked. It's no joke. We purposely, I think, got most of our sightings before that stuff and in wartime. But with the abductions and stuff like that, and I think when you had Kerry on, I was able to talk to her, and I was kind of trying to insinuate to her that could possibly be that these abductions are maybe mostly not alien abductions and are government and she said my labs and stuff like that. I believe that, yeah. And I really do think that Greer does have a point. I think when you do evolve to a certain point, you will get more spiritual. You will get more peaceful. We're not going to be here to we're not going to be pulling people out of their beds to do experiments on them 1,000 years from our personal perspective. I don't think,
Yeah.
So to me, even though I think that has happened, and I do kind of subscribe to I've heard that we've maybe accepted the abduction before in a previous life. I do believe in reincarnation.
Well, we're talking about the government. Like there's a theory where like the government agrees to so many abductions and let them do their experiments with people for technology for one thing. And then we're talking about the MyLab. You're talking about people who recall these abduction experiences and they wake up on a ship or in a room, wherever they are, and there's these little green men around them. And then there's a person in military garb standing in the corner watching everything.
Yep, and we've heard that maybe even that's costumes for the aliens, and that could be set up for the Project Bluebeam, which is another thing that I'm very into, but kind of as like a hot topic or the Project Bluebeam. The whole thing kind of seems a little Hollywood, if you will. Like if we all of a sudden are having a fake alien invasion, we're in for it, and that would be truly exciting. But I've rapped about that, and I've bring that up when I'm talking to people about this stuff. That it is a scenario that I guarantee we have some holographic technology, some actual ships, and if we want to put on a show, we'll put on a show. And back to the abductions though, really quick. I think I would subscribe more to the fact that if we are being abducted by aliens, that it isn't as bad as we think it is. Not to say that there isn't bad races out there, but if our psyche is going to try to recall that and remember that, there's most likely we are going to, dampen that with some scared thoughts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But who knows? It's really tough to say, but witness testimony is one of the best things we can do. And, you watch the witness and does it speak to you? And a lot of times I think people are going to be confused about other stuff, but it's a really muddy territory.
It is, but it's with everything though, man. I mean, because there's, and so this is in the Christian realm. Like there was this guy who, so-called was playing his guitar, singing worship music to God, and was recording it. And he said angels began to sing with him. Like he could hear these angels singing these notes that he was playing, and he recorded it. And you go back and listen to it. And to me, someone who deals with music, you can tell like there's certain harmonizing effects that you can do. I see you got a bunch of keyboards behind you, so you may know this. There's certain like harmony engine and things like that you put on your vocal that will create all these harmony layers and delays, and it's real beautiful sounding. And when I hear it, I want to entertain the fact that maybe this did happen, maybe this dude did capture angel singing. There's been a lot of people claim to do that in the Christian realm, in the charismatic circles. But I can hear it. I'm like, man, that's a delay and a harmony engine. And but it got big. Like he was traveling to churches. They had him on the Christian talk shows, and they're playing it, and he's talking about it and stuff. And then there was some speculation between me and a friend of mine, and supposedly he came out and said that it was okay to do that. Like he made it up, but it was okay because it built people's faith. It got them more into it and stuff. And then we hear other stories now of people like in the Christian circles who claim to go to jungles in Mexico and reach people who are uncivilized and they don't have technology and stuff like that. And so they're out there dealing with these people who are into deep occultism and stuff. And they're seeing miracles. They're seeing demons cast out of people. They're seeing people being raised from the dead. Like, because over in these parts, if somebody dies, like they have to keep that body until they bury it. The government doesn't come take the body to the morgue and keep them there. And like if your uncle dies, he's in the back room until you guys bury him, that type of deal. And so they have all these crazy miracles. And there's a guy named David Hogan is one of the bigger ones. And there's a bunch of people. And then it comes to the fact that maybe they're making these stories up to build people's faith, to get people more into it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that's the excuse that they have, that it's okay because it builds interest in the field type deal. And I kind of see the same thing with a lot of the stuff with, you know what I'm saying, the UFOs and stuff.
I think that's a great point. And I think probably, and I've done some research into how people lie, why people lie, because I mean, that's the field we're in. And I think you made a good point that I think a lot of the times people are in their psyche doing it for a good reason. And I've like spent some time where I didn't really, I was in the ascension circle or channeling and stuff like that. And we know, if you're an experienced researcher, that maybe
a lot of studying on that right now, bro.
And there's clearly something there, but I think a lot of the times too, if somebody were to be faking that, like a Bashar, I don't really trust Bashar that much, but I do think
Have you heard me talk about this at all?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
but I do think that he is in his psyche, and although he could be doing more like a connecting to the Akashic records or something like that, but I think he's doing it for people basically, and that's how he justifies it.
I think he's doing it for himself.
Yes,
because here's my theory, and like not in a bad way. My theory is that because it gets really deep. I've been doing a lot of biblical studying about familiar spirits and channeling and stuff, and I'm open to a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm open to receiving impressions from spirits and things like that, and spirits being in your midst and changing the way that you feel. All this is biblical, right? But when we look at channeling of you tuning out and a spirit comes or a ghost and speaks through you, takes over your body. When we get into that, I think that Bashar, Abraham, I think that they have these messages within them that they feel a certain type of way about humanity. They have this level of peace that they want to share. They have prophecies and blessings for people that they want to share, but them in themselves don't feel qualified, or they're too shy, or who would listen to me? People would think I'm crazy if I came out. So you have a scapegoat. If you channel and say, "Oh, that wasn't me, that was Bashar." People do that with religion.
Like getting the Holy Ghost in you or kind of something like that.
There's part of that, but then there's the part of the scapegoat as far as, okay, you don't like gay people. Well, guess what? God doesn't like gay people. Oh, I love gay people, but God doesn't like them, right? So there's a scapegoat thing there where like, and I've noticed this because I have characters that I play. I came up doing prank calls my whole life, and I had a YouTube channel where I would do parodies and stuff of this old religious, bitter redneck guy, pastor, and I could do the voice really good, and people think he's a real dude. That's the thing. And I could say stuff with confidence as this guy that Derek couldn't say. I'd probably get in trouble if I said some of the things. And so it's a confidence there, and you really do channel a persona. Like you change your voice, and when you get into it, the deep stuff that gets really deep is that you study. Because I was just doing this on my own, watching the stuff, and it's like, you know what, man? I watched a documentary on ventriloquist, and it's the same thing. They got the puppet on their hand, and it's a little shy, timid kid, little nerd. He's never had no social interaction, but he's watched a lot of movies. He knows what to say. And then a fine-looking woman walks in. He's like, "Hey, Toots." He can talk to her and say stuff that this shy, timid kid would never say. But hey, it wasn't me. It was the puppet. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a scapegoat. You're able to say things and do things that you would never do. And then getting deeper into the ventriloquist, like I started doing the studying, it gets deeper because learning to channel familiar spirits, ventriloquist, that's what the word comes from. The word comes from channeling. Like
something coming through them.
Yes, that's what the Oracle of Delphi and the ancient Greeks who would do this stuff. They would channel spirits and let spirits speak through them. And the word for it was ventriloquist. They were called the ventriloquist. There was no puppet. They were the puppet that the spirit was speaking through. It gets really deep, man. I'm open to a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
but you have to use the discernment and be careful and know. Like I went on some, and I have a lot of people who support me. I went on a show where people channel, right? And I've told this to them. They kind of got upset with me, and I said, "Look, it ain't nothing personal. This is what I've been studying. I'm bringing it to the table. You're supposed to be confident enough in what you're doing, where, you know, if this is true, this is truth. But if it's not, then it shouldn't. I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying that this is a theory, you know.
No, we were talking about David Wilcock earlier. I mean, he's tried it himself or done it.
Yeah.
And he's tried to channel Ra. Are you familiar with the Ra session?
Yeah.
That was one of the crazier channeling for me, because I felt the information coming through her was definitely not at her caliber. She was talking about stuff that was way more, you know, way more intellectual and talking about the future and shit. And that really got me, the Ra sessions did. But also with that, I kind of started doing my own research. And from what I understand, and I know I mentioned a little bit earlier that I believe in reincarnation. I want to get into that in full later. But that I think that, say, if we were to die and we died a person that was a hoaxer, we're still a hoaxer in the next life. And if channeling is a way to kind of spiritually cross over, I think a hoaxer in one life can be a hoaxer in the next. And I think we also have people that are playing the same games they played when they're alive, when they're in their waiting process to reincarnate.
Like a ghost, yeah.
Because channeling to me is something that can be intercepted. A trickster, right? And I've heard that from other people, that be wary of the channeling, because it can be intercepted, and then the message can be whatever they want it to be. But that being said, there's stuff coming out of these channelers that, in certain, truthfully, Bashar hasn't dropped my jaw with stuff he's saying. He's more kind of insinuating. The Ra sessions did do it for me. And are you familiar with the Allies of Humanity?
No, not by name, no.
Kerry Cassidy had this guy on, I can't think of his full name, but he's basically doing some channeling, but in a different way. He's saying that there's this race that's however many light years away that will not make contact with us, because they don't make contact with people, but they are going to give us some guidance, and they're going to tell us about the troubles we have facing us in the future. And he's this real innocent, nice guy, and the stuff they're saying is it's not an agenda by any means, but it makes me think,
Yeah.
For one, is he doing it just to help humanity himself? Two, is it intercepted, and are somebody just playing a game? Or three, is it just BS?
Well, these people could be, I don't want to say fooled. They could be, like Carolyn says here, that Daryl or Bashar says that he doesn't know if he's channeling, and he said that he doesn't know if he's channeling an entity or if it's his own subconscious or what.
That's
he doesn't
true.
really know what it is. I think that the mind is powerful. I believe that we can pick up on when we get into spiritism and things like that, and being influenced by spirits, impressions. I mean, the church is founded on that, speaking influence of the Holy Spirit is what's called prophecy or prophesying, is speaking with the utterance of in the power of the Holy Spirit, and it's not you speaking. Like, I've experienced that too. I've been on this podcast and I can feel the Holy Spirit be upon me, and I know that the words that I'm saying are influence, and it's moving something in the spirit realm. It's touching people, like I know. And when it's done, like, I'm back. I don't zone out, but I know that when I'm speaking, it's for somebody. Like, it gets really deep, right? But there's many different layers to that. When we're dealing with the subconscious, man, I have to bring, I'm like you, I'm doing the research. I'm bringing it all to the table. And I've noticed, like, I've done similar stuff with the voice that I do. Am I channeling a deceased, old, bitter preacher? Because, like, people think it's real. I'm able to say stuff. It's hilarious. It's very funny. It's a weird thing, man. And we have to consider everything. I'm not saying anything for a fact. All of it could be in our heads. The Holy Spirit, channeling the Holy Spirit, that could be in your head. That could be just your higher self and you connecting with all that is good, or the parts that are good with you. We could do the same thing with all the negative stuff. But it's the scapegoat thing. There's things maybe now that I want to say about people, but I don't. I'm trying to keep peace. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. But I can't, and I won't say the way I feel about certain people. Some people I want to cuss out. You know what I'm saying? I know they're faking. I know they're making it up. But
I think one thing you said, though, that was really important to me that just resonated was just that even something you hold dear. You just said you don't know for sure. And that is a huge thing. And I think that definitely you know that too, because you talk with more religious, faithful people and stay in those circles. But that's so important to have something that you hold dear, a belief system, if you will, and be able to say, but I'm not sure. Because when it comes down to it, I have a pretty good sturdy belief system. Yeah. But when it comes down to it, I don't know that we're not some computer program or this isn't the
and nobody does.
Exactly. And once we do kind of have our belief system and tie it down tight, we got to watch out. And I'll hopefully get into it a little bit later. And I kind of am at that point right now where I have a couple things where I'm holding tight to, and I really feel like they're the truth. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. I wanted to segue a little bit into just the religious aspect of it, because I know that that's a big topic for you and some of your guests. Yeah. And I've seen a couple of your guests on your podcast talk about how they grew up in the church, and I did. I was baptized Catholic and spent every Sunday in Bible study Wednesdays in a Christian church. And like a lot of your guests, I remember being in this church and kind of feeling like things are being said and are not exactly right to that innocent child, at 5 years old, asking your parents, like, so we're the right one and they're the wrong one, or we're potentially going to heaven and they're potentially going to hell. And
not potentially.
Definitely exactly.
Going to hell.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's important too. And I have a 5-year-old daughter right now too. It's just that innocence. Yeah. We are so close to the truth then. Talk about how I was talking about, we have that truth lie detector in us. Yeah. That's it. And we have it as a child too. And that innocence, that pureness will tell you the truth. So I went to church all my life up until like 16 years of age, just confused by the whole thing. I watched the documentary Zeitgeist, and Zeitgeist, who Jordan Maxwell kind of played a side part in. And all of a sudden, I basically being just like Jesus, born on the 25th, resurrecting and all this stuff. And it shook me, because all of a sudden I had facts that were showing me that this story is not exactly true. And for a second, that was it. I pulled my religion out from under me like a rug and just ditched it, because I had enough. And from that point on, it was like, oh, yep, every war is a conspiracy. All religions are a conspiracy. And I kind of just left it at that. But I also realized that I wasn't doing any real research. I was just watching somebody's research and then saying, oh, well, there's a predicament. And not only recently am I reading some of the works of Manly P. Hall, where he's specifically telling you about cases. We're fascinated with metaphors. And when the old initiated ones would find out the truth, it was more simpler than they thought. It was, so I say something like, you're the God, or you're the anointed one, or whatever. And now how are we going to tell the people? Oh, we're not going to tell the people. We're going to make a parable. We're going to make a metaphor. Mm-hmm. We're going to steal a little bit from this philosophy or theology. And because the people are too illiterate to get to the truth. They don't have enough patience to get to the truth. And I think that's kind of where we have a bunch of religion. But to kind of get back into it, how I kind of ditched my Jesus and the whole religion, and then how it came back in segments was very interesting to me. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. Is when I moved forward, I kind of got in, I'm just kind of looking at a note I had here, because in my earlier music, I was mentioning God in my lyrics and talking about heaven and hell and praying every night, saying, dear God, this, dear God, that. And a lot of times even making promises. And I got sober about 12 years ago off alcohol and hardcore drugs. And, God played a big part in that for me. And I still to this day don't drink and do any hardcore drugs or nothing like that. But I made sort of a promise or an agreement kind of to my belief system. It said, if I can stay away from this stuff, I can pretty much make my music a success. And I know now that there's not a gamble, you don't ask people for something. That's more like selling your soul, but here I am praying to God for my success and stuff like that. And stuff has truly changed since then. I have such faith, and I believe in God, but I think God actually, I don't call it God anymore. I call it creation. I think God is actually an extraterrestrial. That is a name for an alien that is just has substantial wisdom. And I'll get into that later of where where that name came from and how it pretty much turned into a conspiracy. And that I still believe in God and I still believe in Jesus, even though I also think that there's a conspiracy there too, and that's not his actual name, and that he wasn't actually the anointed one. He was the bringer of knowledge. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But
yeah, there's a lot of people who believe that Jesus became the Christ. Like there's that theory that it could have been other people, and then it happens to other people. They live their life a certain type of way, then they become the Christ or someone that God wants to use, whether it's dealing with the prophets or Jesus himself. Going back to the innocence of childhood, I want to touch on that because I had a kind of a awakening with that with when my daughter was young, like maybe 5-6 years old. We're taught in the church that they have to say a prayer and invite Jesus into their life to be saved and things. And so I was still in that. That's been some years ago now. I would try to do that to her. I would try to like explain Jesus to her and you know, and tell her that she needs to be saved and ask Jesus into her heart. But she would look at me like I was crazy. She's like, I already love Jesus. Like Jesus is already in my heart. What are you talking about? Yeah. And it would leave me dumbfounded. Like I'm supposed to convince her that no, he's not in your heart. Like, hold on. Like out of the mouth of babes. You know, the scripture talks about if we want to get close to God, we want to walk in the kingdom of heaven, we have to be like the little children. We have to learn from these children. She's like, I'm already there. You know what I'm saying? And now the world is convincing them otherwise, or Christians or media. It's like, no, you're fallen. You're dirty. You're this, you're that. It's like, no, that was a big thing for me. It's like, man, how do I do that? Am I failing? Or am I doing it right? If she dies, will she go to hell? Like all of these different dogmas and stuff that kind of come into play from that perspective. And I don't agree with that anymore. You know what I'm saying? I learned a lot from that. And I learned a lot from even looking up what hell is. You know what I'm saying? And we've had pastors on the show who have another biblical look, not just their own opinion, but a biblical look on hell. And like, even as far as the Bible's concerned, that it's not even real.
I don't believe in it. No, I think it's just another metaphor. And like I said, if we live in hell in this life, we will live in hell in the next life. We're not any better when we leave this life. We're the same person, and we're here to grow, and we're going to continue to grow. Like I said, I believe in reincarnation. I think we're here for millions and millions of lives. And when we talk about ascension and stuff like that, it's another thing that, you know, I kind of got caught up in for a little bit, was the ascension, the channeling thing. Yeah. And it's a candy coated story, because I don't think we're going to ascend in the next, you know, year or so, or in this lifetime. That is a metaphor for something that's going to take millions of lifetimes to do, to get to a new spiritual level where we'll leave our body form and be teachers in the spirit form. And I think there is that spirit form out there that does teach and has provided us with prophecies and prophets. And that when we get into that, we're not talking about God. We're talking to branches of creation. We have a chance to ascend to a Christ-like form, but we're talking millions of years, millions of lifetimes. And it's kind of my grand finale of where I get a lot of this wisdom from. But another person I wanted to bring it back into was Neville Goddard. I don't know if you're familiar with Neville Goddard. Yeah. This man did a huge thing for me, because when I was kind of absent from the Bible, and I've read the Bible, the New Testament more than once, the Old Testament at least once, and this Neville Goddard guy, what he basically does is breaks down the esotericness of the Bible and shows that anytime we're talking about certain things, we're talking about Christ within, and that God is just creativity, that you as a person, if you think of something, you can create whatever you want. And I truly believe that. So Neville Goddard was one of the first people to bring up a thing he called it the law of assumption, not the law of attraction. This is the law of assumption. If you assume something, it will happen. And he goes over and over and over again in lecture and lecture with numerous people he's taught this skill to, that he says that basically anything you want, you can have. You just have to assume it. And I find a lot of truth in that, because that's happened in my life. Anything I've obsessed over or just know I needed, for better or worse, I've got it. Anytime I prayed to God, dear God, even though that I think that God was not, it doesn't matter.
It's a form of it. Yeah, it's totally a form of it.
We get what we want. We are creators, and we do have a piece, the smallest portion of what I call creation, what we call God. And I think we can have whatever we want. And you talked about earlier, like, what experiences have I had, like, with UFOs or anything like that? The biggest experience I've had is closer to magic than anything. It's that. It's using the law of assumption and getting what you ask for. I have a strong feeling that, anything I'm after, I'm going to do it. And that's why when my old gamble with God, please give me this music dream, is still very relevant, because I won't let it go. I will, you see all the stuff behind me. I will be involved in music, whether it's writing songs, making, songwriting, A&R managing. I will do something because it is my life. I've assumed it. I know I will. And here I am. And then we get more synchronicities, because once you know what you want, it starts happening a lot faster. Neville Goddard.
Have you read The Alchemist?
No, I haven't. That's
definitely. You gotta. You're slacking. That's gonna be the icing on the cake for you, man.
Okay, that's like the last person. I got to do it now, because like 4 people have recommended that.
Yeah, especially everything you're talking about right now. You have to read it, definitely.
But just Neville Goddard, though. Check out some of his talks.
There's some people in the chat right now. Carolyn says she's devoted to reading his works.
Excellent. He's excellent. Just and such a genuine guy. And he's a believer. He believes in the Bible. It's esoteric.
Let me ask you this: did he have a book with the alchemy symbol on it?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Are
you talking about a blue book, though?
Yeah.
All blue? Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
I had that book, and the name sounded familiar. I didn't know who it was. It was like referred to around the Manly P. Hall type material, and I had it. And I want to say the name's close to it. Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I'll check it out.
Right around the same time, and I know you're familiar with Edgar Cayce.
Yeah.
That was another thing that kind of brought my religion back in, not religion, my faith back into my core, because Edgar Cayce was another devoted Christian or Catholic, I'm not sure, but he was somehow the sleeping prophet, was doing these incredible things, was curing diseases, was making predictions. He was the first person to talk about the storage banks, the Akashic records, which is one of my favorite topics, because basically we talk about truth seeking. With the Akashic records, we're good people. No lie will be untold, because the Akashic records have the storage banks. They have everything that's happened. And when we need to find truth eventually, we're going to go to the Akashic records and we'll find the truth, and liars will end then. And that's probably hundreds of years from now when we are all able to. But, you talk about channeling. I think we're able to get in connection with the storage banks. And from that, we are able to pull all knowledge. So if there's somebody that's channeling, giving this incredible knowledge, well, it's up there. It's in the universe. The universe is a computer. We are expanding and always storing our information. And man, if you haven't looked in the Akashic records, that is one of the funnest rabbit hole adventures there is. And Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, was a big thing for me, and let alone a person that had these anomalies happen and then still kept his faith.
I went to his old shop. He's actually from Selma.
R.
What is it?
I thought, is it called R or something? His
it's actually like it's a store now, but his old studio that he used for like the photography stuff for a while, because that's like the perfect example of somebody trying to make a living and being a spiritual person as well. He had to, like, you know what I'm saying, he was into photography and stuff like that to kind of pay his bills, but then he would do those sessions and stuff. But no, there's like, they actually have a big plaque in downtown Selma, Alabama, a big plaque that says the Sleeping Prophet, and there's this big write up on him, and it's really cool. It's right there in front of his shop. I went out there and took a picture in front of it. I used to travel a lot for work, and it's about 2.5 hours away from here, so I got a picture with that. I thought that was really cool, because I didn't even know until I drove by it one day, and I was like, what?
He also talked about Atlantis and stuff like that, which is really awesome, because if you get into the Atlantis story, then it's really good, because you're going 20,000 years back, and take the spirituality from that time, and it's very interesting.
One thing he talked about with the UFO thing that stands out to me, he talks about the Battle of Armageddon, and he says the Battle of Armageddon will be fought in outer space. Like the spiritual war for the end of the world and the ruling of humanity or whatever, it's going to be fought in outer space. That's something that he brought to the table too, which was really cool. And I do like the fact that he was a Christian, he was a believer, and he had his Bible with him when he was doing that. That's really cool, man. You know, he was into that.
That's definitely, and that was, and that to me was important too, because it kind of let me know you can see some shaking stuff that'll really pull some stuff out from under you. Like if you're not careful, it's really easy to find out that Jesus is just based off of some other people. And then you can just sell his story short and count them out. But the Jesus story is incredible. And even the fact of the controversy and conspiracy around it is incredible. But clearly there was, we have prophets in our lifetime. And I feel like Jesus was just one of them. I feel like as we continue our life and as go on, we're always going to have bringers of knowledge that come in here, because we all have missions. I feel like we have an individual mission ourselves. Prophets have missions too, and they're going to keep coming. Yeah,
there's I agree with you. Obviously, I am a Christian. I have faith in Christ, and I believe he was a prophet. I believe there's many awesome prophets. I believe that the stuff that Jesus taught that we can apply to our life, and everything you're talking about, man, as far as like expecting stuff and assuming it and thinking about it, as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. You can have you can have whatsoever you ask for in prayer. It's not the part of begging God for it or asking God for it. It's the act of you speaking it out and declaring it as the oracles of God. And that's what's so cool about the spoken word in general. And it talks about, like, when it talks about being saved in Romans, this is really cool because there's a formula here for me. It talks about if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, then it's established, like you'll be saved or whatever. And it's just like that for us. Like we can have these thoughts in our mind or these dreams in our hearts. You want to be a musician, but when you connect that thought with your spoken word and you declare it, it begins to manifest. You begin to tell people. You kind of get into the power of the I am. I don't want to be a healer. I am a healer. I don't want to be a rapper. I am a rapper. And watch me do it. I can show you better than I can tell you. This is going to happen for me. I do that with the podcast I talked about. I use it as a form of prayer too, because I'm connecting with the universal power. I'm connecting with this creative life force, this pranayama, the Holy Spirit, which permeates through all life. We're connecting. So when I pray, I connect with the energy. I connect with God, as we call it, or Jesus or whatnot. And it's beautiful. Something's watching over us, man. Like something, and that's what's cool about the whole alien thing, and it ties into this. We're talking about aliens being, I believe they're angels. I believe they're spoken of in the scriptures and traveling back and forth from heaven to earth, people fasting, people making contact with angels that are traveling and meeting them and telling them things about their life past. Like I've had experiences like that, and that's why these guys, like I can come as a Christian to the Disclosure Project and listen to these and like have biblical references for it all, because that's just how my mind works. I can go back and have chapters and okay, well, that reminds me of this. And people talking about fasting and not eating meat for a certain period of time and then having angelic contact or UFO encounters. I'm like, dang, like Daniel did the same thing. Elijah, they were caught up and seeing visions and these scrolls in the air and these tubes, what they call them scrolls, fire by night, cloud by day. We're talking about the cloud ships, you know what I'm saying? So it all runs together and paints this. We have to look at everything.
Absolutely.
We can't just say, you know what, this is it. And we have our truths because we have what works for us, and that's all we can have. Like if something doesn't work for you, then I wouldn't promote it, I wouldn't share it. But if it's something that's bringing joy and peace to your life and to the people around you, it makes you a better person, I'm all for it.
And I think you make a good point there, and I think a lot of people could take advantage of this. As I think when we get into this community, into doing conspiracy research and stuff like that, religion and the conspiracy research can kind of separate sometimes, even though they're so close together. I really feel like we need to come together more. And like you did, you can, say you hold one belief. It doesn't matter that you can go to another thing and have an experience with that. But one thing about the Christians out there, because they are really adamant about their beliefs and they have a belief system in play, that they do the best research. They do some of the best research online.
The flat earthers, the Christian flat earthers are off the chain, man.
The Illuminati, all that stuff. They really, because they're passionate. But I think that we always have to be challenging our belief system.
I'll say this. So there's, like, I come out of that, of debating scripture and doctrine and what's right. No, the Bible says this. No, the Bible says that. Like, I come out of that. So I try to stay far away from it. But I've experienced that going on these other shows. I've experienced that with Kerry Cassidy. I've experienced her asking my story and then cutting me off. No. This is it. I'm like, you have me on as a guest to tell my story. Now you're cutting me off doing this because you have an agenda. You have something that you're trying to push. And I've experienced that from the church people. Like when you sit down and you debate doctrine or about the Trinity, about who Jesus was, about Christmas, and nope, Christmas is pagan. It's not of God. And they'll cut you off. And as a matter of fact, and I try not to do that, even though we have difference of opinions and stuff. I'll let the guest speak or whatever. And I may try to, kind of give my opinion at the end or whatever. But I don't try to debate people or get uncomfortable or something like that. But it's that same matter of fact. But you got to look at it. Like they base their life work upon this. Yeah. And Christians, not only their life, but their eternity. They base their eternal salvation on, I have to be right. Oh, you're telling me I'm wrong? I've given not only my life, that's one thing, but your eternal salvation, and you're telling me that I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's where it gets into this fight or flight, and no, you know what? You're stupid. I'm done with you. Don't listen to this guy. That kind of stuff.
I read this book one time because that was kind of one of the things I wanted to prove wrong about religion, that it wasn't inerrancy, or it was inerrancy, that anybody that thought the Bible was inerrant was wrong. Yeah. I wanted to find that out. So I read this book called Misquoting Jesus with the hope that this was going to end it all. And what ended up happening, it was a great book. If you check it out, Misquoting Jesus, this guy's a scholar, lived his whole life studying the Bible nonstop, pretty much grew up thinking the Bible was inerrant, and then went and learned 5 different languages and studied the Bible, and was able to prove that in fact it was in error, and there was a lot of error, but it was not necessarily not true. That the man Jesus is very, very documented, and as far as like we have older philosophers than Jesus that have more documentation, or we don't consider Socrates not to be true. So, but like there's so much documentation of these stories, and that's how we used to pass on stories, was witness testimony and
oral tradition.
The scribes most definitely did change words by mistake. I found out one thing was very interesting, that the word virgin didn't exist in the Bible back in the day. That meant young woman, simply meant young woman. Yeah. So that's a huge thing to be like, she might not have been a virgin. Yikes.
I don't think she was, man. I
don't think so either. And like I said, I got my grand finale of where I'll bring Jesus back one more time. But I wanted to get into one other thing. I mentioned that book. Another guest you had on a while ago, I wanted to make sure I mentioned, rest in peace, J.C. Johnson, man. That just happened not too long ago, and I saw that on your show. That was one of my favorite stories he told about the cryptozoology, because he had a theory that everything was basically coming from under us, the caverns, the caves, and everything we think is coming from outer space.
Hole in the earth.
What if they were just telling us they're millions of miles away or light years away, when they're really right under us, because they just don't want to be bothered because they've been there for thousands of years? And that just really, I can never count that out, Or he had an account where all these people that have been abducted or seen hags or trolls or any of these things all smell sulfur, and that you go into these caves, you leave these caves sometimes, spelunkers or whatever, they smell like sulfur. And it's just, there's so many good theories out there to where, wow, maybe it's not even out there, it's right here.
Or we look at those other planets, we see, like, I think it's Mars or whatever, that has all the holes in it. Like, there's all these holes and stuff, man, and these craters and stuff. So it's like, maybe there's not life on the outside of the planet. Maybe it's a shell and they're inside the planet. And the same thing with Earth, There's so much stuff. I mean, even if, we're like digging up civilizations. Like still now we're finding civilizations that are under the dirt that existed, but now they're underground and all kind of caves.
The Nephilim, quite possibly, maybe.
Dude, there's stuff even just a couple thousand years ago where the Christians like created underground cities to hide from persecution. Yep. And there's a bunch of stuff in Greece, and there's one, I'm not sure what country it is, but it's like the psychedelic cult. I don't know if you've seen it, and they had like all of these beautiful paintings and murals. It looks like an Alex Gray exhibit, but underground, and they just found it. And it's and there's the people there are keeping it secretive. It's beautiful. It's underground. It's crazy. There's beings and angels and just the most elegant, eloquent art and things. And so there's so much stuff going on underground. So who's to say that that's not happening? And we see UFOs going into mountains. We see the underwater UFOs, people on ships claiming to see UFOs come out of the water. And I've heard stories of people seeing them under ships and boats and things like that in the ocean. So something's definitely going on under our feet. Yeah.
I'll do a quick segue from that. When I got into David Icke for a little bit, of course, the reptilians are like, you can't avoid that. And sure enough, that really made an effect on me. Like, what is this thing? And so I ended up actually writing a song about the Lacerda files. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Lacerda files. It's a supposed documentation of a person that was, roaming around that ran into a reptilian, and this reptilian gave them their story. And I wrote a song about that. It's called Down, Down, Down. And that was one of the first songs I actually went in and dove into a conspiracy topic. And I had a great time doing it and realized, wow, I like doing this. I like picking a topic and actually writing a song about it. Although the reptilian agenda and all that, I've kind of moved away from a little bit. I think we kind of hold it a little bit too strongly, and I feel like it is getting saturated and stuff like that. But
and he's kind of deviating from it a little bit too. A
little bit, yeah. And he has so much knowledge and so much stuff that I think he kind of pigeonholes himself too, like Kerry does a little bit. It just, you've got so much information, and you do end up having some belief systems in play.
You know what the weird thing is like, he can talk to us about it. We're like, yeah, tell me more. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm into it. But if you watch his interview on the show, what is it? Religulous, I think it was called. Did you see that?
No,
with,
but I know
with Bill Maher.
Actually, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that clip online and stuff, but that he just.
No, he makes it. He never does good publicly.
Yeah. He doesn't do good with people who actually.
No, that aren't into it. Yeah.
Or people who aren't into it and don't believe in it.
Vice interviewed him, and he pretty much didn't do a good job on Vice either. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where if we only talk about reptilian agenda, these hot topics of the conspiracy stuff, we might push people away rather than kind of get them to come in there. But to kind of go off that a little bit, and on our song "We're Not Alone," I actually wrote that song almost 4 years ago, closer to when I was just starting to wake up. And in the chorus, I list the alien races: Anunnaki, Nephilim, Anunnaki, Palladians, reptilians. And although now I realize, I've made it name two of the same races as two different nicknames from, because the Anunnaki, it seems, could be the Nephilim, or the Nephilim could be the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki could also be the Nordics, and all. It's really wild that there's clearly these races out there, but who's who, what's what, and to kind of point people in the right direction to hear, you should go check out the Palladians, which I actually, I'll get into that in a little bit.
I put a lyric out in my new album. It's contact with the pale Palladians who resemble Ivanka. Practice tantra. In my mantra, let's talk about how the Palladians look like Ivanka Trump.
Hair.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This tall, beautiful woman or whatever the case is, blonde hair, blue eyes type deal, and you know what I'm saying? The pale Palladians who resemble Ivanka. Practice tantra. And my mantra is banish monsters. Glory to the Father. Yeah, that's on my new project. But yeah, but and it's not about being 100% right. And we talked about Corey Good before we went live, and wondering if he's been blacklisted from some places. We talked about me being having my account shut down on Project Avalon, which came out of Project Camelot, and I posted there for years, and I guess I don't know. You have to ask him. Maybe he's got a different story. I don't know. But
I'd like to get you back on there, man.
I know. I love those people, man. It's insane. That's a huge forum. It's a community.
Family. It really is.
Dude, I felt awesome, man, to getting like all those people commenting on my stuff and reaching out to me. And I mean, where else are we supposed to go? You know what I'm saying? Like, what the heck?
It's a community, man. That's why I was even saying, even if we are, like, if Corey Goode gets proven to be a hoaxer, let's not banish him. Let's just, let's make it I want these stories to go public so we know we can practice discernment and know the blue Avons are not real. But let's go on to the next one. What is real,
Yeah. That's what's good about it. And I was kind of putting it where you were talking about, maybe getting it wrong. You name the same race twice or whatever the case is. And I don't think it's about getting it down to the T. I think it's about sparking creativity and wonder and getting those people out there to get into the work and get into the field and look those terms up and let them make those assumptions on their own. They're like, wow, okay, who are the Palladians? There's people listening to this right now have no idea what the hell a Palladian is. And this is early stuff that for you,
Sure.
You've been hearing about this and researching it for years. So it's about putting that stuff in the music and in the interviews and stuff and like piquing people's interest to let them do the work for themselves. And then once they've done the work, they can come back and listen and be like, and learn more, and we talked about the LCLB, the Lost Children of Babylon, before we went live too, and how like, when I was just coming into this stuff, I was listening to their music. I didn't understand the majority of it. Okay. And then I would be reading Manly P. Hall and I'm like, damn, that's what they're talking about. Yeah. Wow. And they're talking about like the initiation of the pyramid. Then I read about the initiation of the Great Pyramid in Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teaching of All Ages. And
I'm reading that right now.
It's beautiful how things just kind of come together and people experience that through our work too.
Yeah.
They're like, man, TruthSeekah, you said this, and then I was watching a movie, and now I know what you're talking about. Like, that concept was in this movie, and then it's in the Bible here, and this type of stuff. So it's just creativity. You're talking about God is creativity. I believe it, man. God is a creator, and if we're made in the image of the creator and the likeness, we're to create too. And us creating, hopefully, good stuff, that's what we're trying to encourage people to bring something beautiful to the table versus creating deception and destruction and things like that in a negative way. But when you create something beautiful, man, I think you're honoring God. I think you're worshiping God to the highest extent because we're Absolutely. Made in that image and likeness. I believe that, man.
Well, that makes a lot of sense right there too. It's just I think we're all at different walks of life, and I'll get into this. Another person I already mentioned, Edgar Cayce, believed in reincarnation, but I think that we're all here to learn lessons. And if somebody here is just at a bad walk of life or not as evolved as the rest of us, that is where they're at. And I feel like that's where a lot of respect is going to come in, a lot of love. It's just when we realize that we're not all on the same level. There's a reason some of us are more intelligent in certain aspects. It's that we're at different walks of life, and we all have a chance, and not any of us are really wrong. This whole right and wrong thing, I think you could live a whole life completely wrong, and maybe the consequences wouldn't be as bad as we imagine. It's just living, and we have to learn these lessons. But to talk more about reincarnation, why that's a really big thing to me, and how that I keep on cross-referencing that, it keeps on coming up, and it really holds true to me. But one of the things with We're Not Alone, to kind of go off that, the original cover for that is a poster a picture that Billy Meyer took, who's pretty popular as far as UFO contacts. Now, he's pretty popular as a hoaxer for the most part, because it's pretty easy to see that.
Those girls that he had, were like entertainers and stuff. He said that they were the Palladians. And
well, actually, that he spoke on that too, and he's actually had that girl that was in that photo talk to him, and they explains why that picture was falsified, and that he's up against it himself. But that picture was a photo taken by Billy Meyer. It was actually on the original X-Files poster. I Want to Believe was the Billy Meyer photo. Yeah. So I spent the longest time avoiding his case because.
Carolyn, I see your comment. She says she thinks she was a dancer. Yeah.
Yes, and she was. And she just recently, like within the last 4 months, was at Billy Meyer's ranch and talked to him. And he explains right to her why.
I thought Billy Meyer he's dead.
No, he's alive. He's alive and well, man. He's alive and well.
What the heck? I thought he'd been passed.
No, he lives in Switzerland. He still has contact to this day, which I'm going to get into more.
Yeah.
So I got into Billy Meyer's case, and I started reading his contact notes, because he has up to 600 plus contact notes with the Plejaren, not the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians, they made that name for a certain reason, but it's called the Plejaren is what they are. And I started reading the contact notes, and quickly I just started realizing I'm reading the best story I've ever read in my life, period. Period. The best story ever. Now, I read it the whole way thinking, okay, this is a hoax. This guy's a hoaxer.
I was the other way around.
Incredible. This is incredible that he is lying about all this. And not until about the end of the 200th contact or something, or before that, I realized this man is not lying. And he has evidence, substantial amount of evidence to prove that he is telling the truth. He has the most photos ever taken of craft. He has group witnesses that have witnessed multiple crafts with him. He has metal samples that have been given, that have been tested by multiple scientists that cannot be proven to be from here. He has sound and film testimony. He has multiple prophecies and predictions that have came true. He predicted the internet. He predicted 9/11. It goes on and on and on. And basically, I've sent some of my biggest skeptics, my friends over there that, one of my buddies that's a doctor who is really well versed in doing good research and stuff like that. I was like, go prove Billy Meyer's case wrong. Go do it. Go prove it wrong. And you can't. Now you can, however, go spend an hour online and watch a video that shows, this wedding cake UFO that looks a little bit unbelievable, or those girls on this show that was on the Ed Sullivan show or something.
There was some, and there was another guy who got big over here in Gulf Breeze, Alabama, or Florida, and he would have these little pans or pie pans or whatever, and there would be these little UFOs that he would shape and make, and then he would hold it out far, and he'd take a picture of it, and it looked like it was real, or they would be hanging from a string or whatever. And then he had a bunch of sightings that he can go out and have these sightings or whatever. And I did see some pictures from the Billy Meyer stuff that was these little models or whatever, and he's standing up close to them. But if when you're away from it and you have it with the landscape, it looks like a legit huge flying saucer in the field and things.
Yeah. He definitely he made some models, but that he basically said that he never used a model in the photo. What ended up happening is he would send his camera into a place to get it developed, because this is well before all that. He'd actually have to get the film developed. And there, Billy Meyer was also he had attempted assassinations on him over like 15 times. People tried to kill him, shot at him. He has bullet holes in trees where people shot at him. Like, people were trying to get at him because of some reasons, and definitely took some time to try to falsify his story, because like I said, it's very, very hard to debunk. There's only like one person out there that is thoroughly trying to debunk him, and he's having a very, very hard time with certain things. But people, I strongly suggest, if you're in this waking up process, to check out Billy Meyer. Go ahead, prove him as a hoaxer in that 1 hour it takes to go to your YouTube videos. But you have to read the contact notes. You have to read the prophecies, the predictions, and you have to read the contact notes he's still having to this day, because they are incredible. And also, he's getting information from the Pleiadians, the Plejaren, who are, thousands of years more advanced than us, who talk about our original origins, where we come from. They talk about creation and about the falsification of Jesus, but also who the real man of Jesus was. And his name was Emmanuel. And I know Jesus was called Emmanuel in the Bible he has a few hymns and songs that refer to him as Emmanuel. But basically, that's another thing Billy did. He unearthed the Talmud of Emmanuel, which is basically the Bible of Jesus that was written by Judas Iscariot, or Iscariot. I don't know which one. There's two of them that supposedly, turned his back on Jesus. No, that this is the theory goes where he was actually, he knew everything he was doing and purposely gave his information up. But you got to read this Tablet of Emmanuel and the Billy Meyer story if you have time, because it takes it. I've been reading the contact notes for years now. And I'll thoroughly try to debunk it. Michael Horn's kind of his liaison, a guy named Michael Horn who speaks on his behalf in America. He has a podcast.
He doesn't speak English, does he?
Billy Meyer, he does, but he doesn't openly.
Okay.
And I'm sure you could probably get Michael Horn actually on your show. He's extremely versed in the Billy Meyer case. And it's so fascinating. It really is. And even if it's a hoax.
Yeah. It's an
incredible story.
Exactly. It is definitely worth looking into. Yeah. I'm like the ones like, because I was the other way around. Like I listened to it thinking that it was real. And then I came into the hoax stuff. I was like, And it was like weeks into it, research and listening to the interviews of people talking about him and coast to coast specials done on him and stuff, and then seeing the hoax stuff, and that's usually like what it is. But there's hoax stuff about everything. Once you get so big, and that's what I was talking about with some other people, is like you kind of made it once there's hoax videos out there about you, or that you're a shill, or whatever the case is. You reached a level of fame or whatever where people want to destroy you, or want to they want to disprove your work because it goes against what they believe or whatever, and then they'll stretch lies. And we could see that 100% with the damn the stuff going on right now, the crisis actors.
Oh yeah,
and like so that's just going rampant on the internet for right now. It's been like with each school shooting, and there's all this stuff, and people are stretching with these pictures and holding two people's pictures up next to each other. It's clearly not the same person. They may have the same nose or something. Like, look, it's this guy was in
aging. Yep, they're just bringing them back.
Crazy theories, but then when you look up like what the news is covering, and because now they're having to speak on it because it's getting so big, like they're telling you like what the deal is. And there's one with it zooms in on the kid's ear, and he's got a little earpiece, and they're like, look, they're feeding him his lines. He's an actor. He's a crisis actor. But you watch the news special, he's having a remote session with a lady in New York. He's being interviewed by a lady in New York, so he's got an earpiece so he can hear her. Like, there's all this stuff, and like somebody who's good at putting together YouTube videos can do that, and people would believe it. And that thing's had like over 100,000 shares on this false flag information stuff that people love. They eat it up. That's why we got to be careful, like with the stuff we promote. And I think there is a difference between just getting caught up in conspiracy theories and truth. Like you're saying, you have your truth and these things that you're sure of or whatever. But hopefully your truth is something that can benefit humanity and not, just bring about more questions and
or it's always up for debate.
Freak people out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just my belief system's always going to be on the table. I can't lock it in. And although it's hard, I just recently read it's very hard for people to hold two contradictions in their head. Cognitive dissonance, basically. But yeah, it is. It's hard to have your belief systems rattled, but it also is very, very fun and awakening and spiritual. And who knows? Like I said, we don't know that we're not some little kid's experiment. And I'd hate to say this too, because I'm sure familiar with psyops and what stuff is going to be out there that is clearly to just have us sound like nutters and sound like we're crazy. I just recently got into watching a flat Earth documentary, just because. Although it's really easy to say that's bullshit. The
more you listen, it's some compelling stuff.
And that's the only thing I want people to get out of that is that you got it before you. My buddy said this too recently, and it stuck with me. He's fascinated by things that people hold dear, and that there's no changing it.
Why they hold it dear is my thing. Yes. Like, why are you adamant on the government lied about this conspiracy, or the flat Earth or whatever,
Exactly. But then again, you dive into it and you see what they're passionate about. And that's another thing. I'm under the impression that everybody is right in some portion,
I'm with you. Yeah.
And maybe even on a huge mental point. Like if you were to think the Earth is flat and you have all this information, maybe it is, but just for you. Like maybe you've made a flat Earth, and when you die, when you see it, when you remote view,
it's always flat.
Exactly. And And who knows that's just not the way
we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. Like
yes.
we like project it out, and we see it the way that we are. And I mean, that's the number one thing with religion. That's with politics. I was thinking about that on the car ride home this morning. Like, with politics, I can get in because it's a middle ground. I think most intelligent people, when it comes to right and left, there's a middle ground where most compassionate people are. It's not about 100% being with the left, and we see what that did. I mean, just look at the end of Obama's administration, all the weird, crazy stuff that passed and it come through with the floodgate, and then Trump is like the response to the left, and he's super right, you know, and it's just crazy fight. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, and
absolutely
listening to maybe not Trump, because people look that it's Trump who's saying it. Let's look at George W. Bush or something. Like, Trump's a bad example. But the more you listen to someone who's on the right, and they explain their you know what I'm saying, where they're coming from and why they're doing this, it sounds feasible. Like, eventually you can like, yeah, that sounds right. The more you listen to the right or the left or whatever, the opposite side, you're like, yeah, man, these guys are making a lot of sense. I see what they're doing. But obviously, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And the same goes for watching documentaries. If you listen to Jordan Maxwell long enough, or and Jordan Maxwell can be completely wrong, but just the presentation and him being a little bit more well-spoken, I feel like I'm the worst person to try to talk about some of this deep stuff and righteousness and understanding, just because of the way I look, right? You're looking at this guy, especially before we went live, we were talking about Ra Costello, who went live with John Lear. And John Lear's got this guy who's got tattoos and piercing, looks a lot like me, you know what I'm saying? And he had an interview, and he like belittled this guy by the way you young punk. I've had Jordan Maxwell talk about, like, you know, he couldn't see me at the time because he's talking about people's into basketball. I was wearing a basketball jersey. You know, he couldn't see me, but he's like belittling pop culture, and you know, and you want to have fun, and you want to get drunk, and blah 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 blah, and do all this kind of stuff, like from a real bitter standpoint. So it's like a lot is with the packaging, so much so that I wanted to wear a suit. It's like, you know what, this information I'm dealing with, I've got a suit. I've done podcasts and interviews wearing a suit. You look more credible. But it's like, when we're talking about being authentic,
just be yourself, man.
Be authentic. And now look, my podcast is booming right now. Like, so many supporters and subscribers, and people are resonating with it. It's being authentic, whatever you are. But hearing that information come from a more elegant spoken person, or somebody from the UK or England, like, for some reason, we're just like, we want to believe them. But the whole thing about being wrong, maybe it's right for them. We look at a broken clock. A broken clock is right twice a day.
Yep.
You know,
I think you another great point you made there is just and I kind of grew up this way. I grew up in a Republican household, and my dad had Fox News on all day, to where I pretty much walked into school one day and I was a Christian and a Republican, just because that was what I had in front of me. And when I got to high school, and they kind of liberal you up a little bit, or you just get more open. It's not liberal you up or nothing. But then I'm all of a sudden full liberal. And then when I finally grew up, I realized what I have to do is I have to check out the right, check out the left, and explore both sides, because you have to see both sides of the story. Because if you, with your heart, look into it, you can kind of get sensitive with people and feel where they're coming from, no matter if they're the worst or bad. And I think that's a huge part of the research we're doing, the field we're in. And I have to say about you in general, which I admire, is that you are fearless, because one thing I'm fearless about is putting stuff in music, and if it's in the music, I'll promote it. But I'm not that way. I don't talk about this stuff on my Facebook because my parents and family are there, and I'll share some stuff. You know, I'll share. I
was told not to by all of my peers. I was told not to do this podcast. Don't share, and we're talking about drug use. I openly talk about eating mushrooms, and they're like, oh, and I have at the time I had a full-time job and a boss, and all of my coworkers had Facebook, and they want to tell on you and things like that. I had to block all my coworkers at work, but all my friends who were diehard into this stuff, they love it, but they would never share it on an open platform, and that's what I did differently. And even from a religious perspective, they're like, "Oh, you're a Christian and you're talking about eating mushrooms." Yeah. Hell, let's do it. I got friends who have churches, And there are churches that use those sacraments. They eat mushrooms at church. They have these religious encounters in Alabama, in the Bible Belt. You know what I'm saying? So I stuck my head out there, and I had to play the martyr, and I did. And for years it was hard, but now it's okay. Now, like people have these questions. It's not just me. And so it's just like a beacon. It's like, hey, this guy's talking about what I've been thinking about. I get those messages. You're articulating the thoughts that go on in my head, but I have nobody to talk to. I have nobody to roll these ideas off of. If I talk to my parents, I'm crazy. I talk to my pastor, my friends, I have nobody to talk to. I have to go to the internet, listen to podcasts, call in the shows. I was there. That's why I'm doing it, because I was there. I was the dude listening to Project Camelot and then going out, listening to Greer, having experiences. I'm like, who the hell do I talk to? I talked to my friends about it. Dude, it was hard for me to talk to my wife about it.
Yeah, my best friend yesterday, kind of preparing for this, said, is it hard for you to have all this stuff in your head and not have anybody? Because I'll talk to him about it all the time, but he doesn't research this stuff. He just basically makes beats with me and is in the studio, and I'm talking about the stuff when I can. But he's like, is it hard to hold all that stuff in your head, you know? And it really is, man. And I think part of the reason is I'm not talking about it openly enough, and I'm not being fearless. So I admire that. And I really do want to take a step in that direction. But more importantly, you know, and I obviously the reason I'm here too is to have more people check out my music, because I will be honest in my music. I will write more about these topics. And that is where I feel fearless, is when I've put it into a piece of art. Although talking to somebody like yourself, you know, this stuff comes naturally. Yeah. So I wish I was talking about it all the time. I probably would feel better.
I mean, look at the ancient art. We can look back at like the painting of the Mona Lisa and some of the Jesus hanging on the cross with UFOs flying in the background, dudes piloting little ships. Like the art, man. The art is talking about being creative and being self-expressive. Like, where did that come from? Was there persecution, or was this guy was that commonly known at the time? I think probably it was, but what if it wasn't? And this guy's like, okay, I want you to draw this picture of Jesus who died for humanity. Okay, I'm going to draw him, but I'm going to put these little Easter eggs, even like the Mona Lisa and some of them other ones. They're Easter eggs. You have to look. There's a man standing on the mountain pointing up at a UFO in the background of this ancient art, man, or this like Renaissance art that we have that was commonly known to these people. This isn't nothing new. There's like all of these ancient sightings and all this stuff. They call it the New Age. I hate that term. Right. I don't identify with that term at all, because this stuff we're talking about is very old. It's not New Age at all. It predates your religion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm currently reading Manly P. Hall, which I've been familiar with, but I was watching one of your interviews and Gordon was adamant about, Jordan rather. And so I was like, I got to read this book finally. Man. But it's just incredible how much basically and just philosophy in general. Like we used to get together as people and just talk about this stuff. That was religion. It was philosophy. What could we ponder? What could this be? We didn't have any ideas. We had ideas. We didn't have any facts. And that's intriguing to me, because I feel like we're still at that. We don't have as many facts as we think we do. We have science, so much
information, though. You know, it's just exactly. So to pinpoint, who has the facts? Okay, there's Kerry Cassidy, there's the Catholic Church, there's the Protestant Church, there's the Muslims. Maybe the Muslims is the one that's right.
Maybe we do, and we're just looking.
Exactly. But
just looking to get it triggered.
I think we all have a piece of it. So, and when it comes to religion, and what religion, I bring in UFOs and everything we're talking about. I think like you said, we all have a piece of the puzzle to bring to the table. And when it comes to the spirituality behind the religion and the terminology, I think we're all talking about the same thing. There is a universal presence. There is a universal God, if you will, whether it's an alien that created us and we call him Yahweh and other people call him this and that and blah, 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 blah. But they're still connecting, whether it's you go internally and we have antennas to connect with this energy, and we're all with the language barriers and what we can relate it to and say what it is. I talk about the Kundalini and the Holy Spirit and Chi energy, Tachyon energy, the pranayama. I think all that's the same thing. That's called different things in different religions, but I think it's all the same thing. And people are so caught up on being right. Say, no, it's different. And obviously with each culture, there's going to be some difference. There's going to be some variance and stuff, and people who have kind of marketed it and called it their own. But I really think in all of this, we're looking at the same thing, and we're just kind of interpreting it from our standpoint of view. From our point of view, of which we're standing looking at the same thing,
And it is pretty incredible that all across the world, we have some of the same stories. That in itself, from what's been carved into pyramids or whatever, or the pyramids made everywhere. It's like, it's such an anomaly that we are clearly talking about the same things. Well, maybe it's not an anomaly, and it's just like, we're after the same spiritual thing. And we're just, we have so many different metaphors for what is our, what we're doing here. And but kind of one thing you made me think of is a lot of people, when you talk about this stuff and they're into religion or they're into the Bible or they have faith, and they're not into this stuff, but it's like the Bible talks about so many different stuff: giants, angels, monsters.
Even just the angel thing with Christians. A lot of Christians believe in angels, guardian angels, but there are no demons. Like like in their mind, demons don't exist, or they passed away, or Jesus rules and there's no evil. But a lot of church people do not believe in demons. Yeah. Or we have the other way around. In the churches, the charismatic churches I come from, they love talking about demons. Oh, I had a demon on me. I was smoking meth and there was a demon on my back. And I got friends who have these crazy encounters with demons. They expect demons. They look for casting out of demons. But when we talk about angelic contact, okay, I was stargazing and the Lord spoke to me. I seen an angel. He drove by, stopped, said hello, kept going. Like, I've had that happen. And when we talk about angels, they're like, no, that's not happening. But it's okay to talk about demons, and they love it and they welcome it. When you talk about angels, then they're like, no, I'm calling BS.
We're so much closer to being on the same page. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is I just, I want to be on the same page with people. If it's something simple too, like, I don't know, like getting the fluoride out of your water, something simple, just simple stuff. Let's be on the same page. What are we being lied to about? What can we come together with? Because there's a couple things that it doesn't need to be right or wrong. It's like, we're being lied to, definitely. And let's move past for that and try to get to some truth. And there's a lot of that going on right now, but luckily there's, more and more people, I think, every day come into podcasts like yours, press and pause when they hear a name they don't know, they're
doing it in the comments. I don't know if you can see the comment section on YouTube, but everybody's saying, okay, how do you spell Billy Meyer? How do you spell it? Like they're definitely talking about it.
I'll just, one more time though, with Billy, please, you cannot just watch videos for that or you'll do yourself an injustice.
Something funny about that, I thought he was dead. Carolyn, who's super well researched and all this stuff, she thought he was dead, and then somebody brings up in the chat, they brought up the Mandela effect, and it's like, maybe, and then somebody brings up Billy Graham. I thought, I'm a Christian, like I thought Billy Graham was already dead. He died yesterday, rest in peace. But I thought he'd been dead for some time, and
the Mandela effect really gets me, man. That's another thing that kind of throws me off of my grasp of things. It's like, what the heck is this, man? I don't like this feeling.
Maybe it was right to you, like you're saying. You created it, and at some point you've seen it in the movie, and it became truth to you. You didn't know, but you live your life like Billy Graham's dead. You speak of him in the past tense, even though this man is still living and thriving, and it's like that with everything. And it's with religion, cognitive dissonance. And we look at people like the Mormons and people who are into polygamy today. Like they're still trying to live by these biblical kingdom standards where a woman was of age at the age 13 or 12 or whatever. Like there's people who still believe that that's truth, and they're still doing it. Most Christians will scoff and laugh. Oh no, that's pedophilia. They were not. But people are still religions are based on that. Islam, they're still doing that. That's their truth. That's totally disgusting. It's demonic to us now. But people in their mind, and they'll go to their deathbed living with that truth that's right to them. That's deep to think about.
Yeah, it's wild. And who's to say they weren't, because that, I mean, no, you can definitely, that's another thing.
At that point in time, like 2,000 years ago, whatever, they were right. That was like, that was their truth. It exactly. was the accepted truth. And some people still hold on to that. That's the weird thing to look at. And all of this stuff that was, it's weird how all of it's little bit by little bit we're evolving, we are changing, we're becoming something else. Sure. The whole, even with the homosexuality thing in the churches right now, like it was a big deal when it was first introduced. Now there's becoming more gay pastors, more gay bishops. Eventually it's going to be normal. If you say anything about it, you're going to be the outcast, but they're fighting it right now. Right. Sure. But it's slowly coming in, and it's not, and that's just an example. We can look at women being pastors. That was never a thing in the biblical times. Now there's churches on every corner with women who are the lead pastors, single mothers as the pastor leading a congregation of men. That would have never happened. And you look back at it, the way they did things, something else got introduced, and they fought it. But eventually, we look at technology, we look at the RFID chip, we look at everything. Like we're changing, man, as a people, as religious. And then they claim to have it figured out, but if you're going back to the roots of your religion, man, these people, like, I look at Christianity and I see more of Hinduism in ancient Christianity, of the way they walk, they meditated, spent hours in prayer, you know what I'm saying, fasted, all this. You don't see that in the West. That looks more like Hinduism right now to me, going in and out of trances. Like, that's biblical. They did that stuff, but like, it's so far removed from what we know the religion or the belief system to be today.
Yeah. And just one last point I would say, I know a couple of times I've said, maybe you were right or we're all right in our way. I just want to not confuse that with, I know you talked about the New Age movement. I agree with you that's a lot of this stuff's been going on before. But I think with the New Age movement, maybe what they're trying to say sometimes is we eat up a lot of this, the good stuff, the ascension stuff, and that's good, but or the law of attraction, where everything you're responsible only for yourself. I think that's a kind of a psyop in itself, is to get us to think that we're not responsible for other people's bad doings, or that stuff, the evil stuff, is okay because we're not a part of it and we're not thinking about that. But that's not the case. We as people do need to point a finger when stuff is evil and wrong. Yeah. And we can't just say, because we're on the right spiritual journey, we don't want to entertain that. No,
I've been there.
Mark Passio is a great person to check out, who's definitely who's put me on that term. Like, listen, we got to fight for this stuff, and just not go, oh, everything's okay because I'm spiritually in tune and I just don't want to affect what they're doing. It's like, no, we really have to know what is right and wrong.
I could see a little bit of that.
We're all at walks in our life, and we all.
I'm a little bit more passive now, and but for good reason, because I used to be aggressive. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't have a conversation with you for believing something different. I wanted to show you why you were wrong, and me and my crew and my people, and I talk about this all the time because this is big, but you find validation in other people believing in what you believe, or if I can win you over to this realm of understanding. And that's still going on. It goes on in religion, but it's universal. It goes on.
It's human nature.
With you know what I'm saying, ufology and Kerry Cassidy having her interview with Steven Greer, and I'm right, no, this is it, no, this is it, and if who was to say if one would have won the other over, how that would have made them, that gratitude, and especially if somebody with a seat of authority, somebody who's a little bit bigger in those realms. And so it's the same way with religion, and wanting and having validation by others believing in what you believe. And we have to move past that. I think we do. I think we have to know our truth and let our freak flag fly and just be ourselves and be authentic in whatever it is. Like, and this is me. I'm tattoos and, bad speech at times, you know what I'm saying? And, stuttering at times, and that's me. I feel like I feel like I'm one of the last people who should be doing a podcast, as far as wanting to listen to, but something's working there because people are freaking listening to it, like the information that's coming through. And that's what it's about, being authentic. You look at Joe Rogan. I got friends, and I talk about this all the time. I got tattoo artists who love what they do for a living. They're themselves. They get to clock in and they're on the clock doing what they love to do. And Joe Rogan does it. Illuminati Congo. I have these people in my life that I've met, and I just see this, like, they love their experience. They love everything about it. And now I'm at that place. I love everything, and I'm trying to share that with people and let them know what's working. Like, this is what I did. This is what I'm doing. Me and you talked a little bit before we went live. It's about consistency. It's about showing up and doing what you love and enjoy doing. And if you enjoy getting into conspiracy theories, keep doing it. Like, be consistent with it. Like, if you enjoy, there's people who enjoy, though, like, working at McDonald's. There's people who enjoy driving, doing, you know what I'm saying, the delivery driving jobs. But there's people who are just restless within them, and they feel like they want something more, and they want to be this, but they're stuck here, and there's a gulf in between. And I think that even the religious books are talking about this. How do we manifest that and walk in our calling and become that person that we see in our mind's eye, man? I think that's what the religious text is about as well.
We got a community, and I think we do need to come together more. I think what we are coming together is a lot of people are coming to the podcast and viewing, but there isn't a lot of places I can just openly talk about this. And I hope that changes. I hope that one day.
It's changing. You have to create it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is, no matter how big it is, how scary it is, nobody will listen to me. Do it. If that's your vision, stick with it. We're doing it, man. Like, I'm not the only one. I'm inspired by other people, like, and then putting my twist on it and adding what I like from this guy and what I like from that guy, and then who I am. It could be done, man. Whatever you want, don't be scared. The music, the podcast, the community. We have a roundtable now. It's called the School of the Mystics. We do on Thursday nights, and it's for like people who are supporting and stuff. But we have a community there that we're building with, where people don't have to just be like a spectator. Like, there's people, and it was somebody I talked to the other day, but they listen to the podcast religiously, and I have a lot of people on who listen to the show, and they're listening to this conversation, and all these people in the chat right now. They're commenting right now. They're literally commenting. But there's people who are listening like, I want him to ask me that question. You know what I'm saying? Look, dude, 10 years ago, what do you think I was saying listening to Kerry Cassidy talk to Jordan Maxwell? Ask me about the UFOs. Ask me about the aliens. Guess what? The law of attraction, the law of imagination, like all of it, it happened, bro. We're creating this as we speak it, as we believe it, and being consistent. Don't just think of it like, hey, that would be cool. Man, I thought about that for days. You know what I'm saying? I confess it. I walk in it. I believe it. It came true. Whatever you want to build in your reality, you can bring it to the table. That's for everybody.
Let alone that's how you start your podcast each day, and saying that this is working. This is, that's great. Saying it out loud, not only, prayer a lot of times in our head, which I believe in the power of prayer so much. I believe, people could be an atheist, but please, you practice the power of prayer. Even if you're an atheist, watch, it works, Speaking over people too, like you do it for yourself, and then we do it. And so that's praying for people. Absolutely.
There's a big difference in the church to like pray for a healing, and God, would you please heal my brother? My brother's suffering from a mental illness. There's a difference if we look at how the prophets and Jesus and the disciples said it. They didn't beg God to do something. They declared it. They declared it. They say, in Jesus' name, you're going to be healed. You're going to be whole. I speak wellness over you. I've seen it, bro. I've had phone calls with people whose legs won't move, and they're on the other side of the world. And we're on the telephone together, and I begin to speak to their legs, and they get feeling in their nerves again, bro, like crazy stuff. And it's because I believed it before I said it. It wasn't like, God, I hope maybe if I pray this, maybe you heal them. I said, I believed it in my heart and in my mind. I confessed it over them. Miracles, dude. I've seen so many miracles. That's why I believe there's something to this thing, whether it's the confession and with the faith and whatever. You have faith, whatever you believe will be possible. That's for good stuff and bad stuff. You believe in bad stuff and negativity and, I'm just always broke, man. I don't have time I would love to do a podcast. I don't never have time. Or just start confessing it. I'm going to make time. I'm going to find time. I'm going to make these connections on my lunch break. Dude, I'm telling you, man, I wrote all my albums working on a job somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like I did, like you have to make time to do it. I could have did so many other things, man. But this is the power of manifestation, man, and creating the life that you want for yourself.
Absolutely. And I mean, the way you described healing right there, talk about Billy Meyer, that's exactly how he describes it. It is just the will, and you can, the blind will see.
Yeah.
But you have to be so powerful in your determination.
To do
no
it.
doubt. No doubt. And once you remove that doubt, we are creators.
Part of the biggest part of removing the doubt is just doing it. For you to like, okay, if this doesn't work, I look like a fool. I look like a crazy person. So if you move out of your comfort zone and do it, like I've done this in public. Like I've been in hospitals and laid hands on people and prayed for people and seen them start crying and in tears and their back straighten up, just people death. Like I've seen this happen, dude. And part of of responding to the faith is you just doing it. We can all of us dream of this stuff, but it's the fact that if you step out in faith. And that's what the Bible is full of these things. This isn't nothing new. Like I'm just like doing the stuff that I started seeing them do, and it's working.
That's another thing.
Even if it's only works in my mind and me and that person, because to me it's real. And we talk about the law of attraction, and we see it done with like The Secret. We hope we can get a good parking spot. Even with the job and things like that, or, I hope I get this, or I'm going to pass this test or whatever. But I use it for healings, for miracles, for changing people's lives. And I speak it. Okay, when I go out today, I'm going to get a word for somebody. God is going to speak to me, or the Holy Spirit, or whatever your connection is, going to speak to me about something that somebody's going through. And I'm going to speak to it, and pain's going to, I'll prepare myself and expect it. And you go to Walmart with that expectation. And see if your trip to get groceries, see how it changes. It's crazy, man. You have people come up in like divine appointments of people being sent to you who need what you have, but you have to be willing to step out. If you don't step out, it's just going to pass you by, and you have to be willing.
We've only known each other for about a week, and that all happened on those terms, I feel like, too, just real quick. And I mean, let alone you just being a real one and helping out with that, too. But it all comes together. And I think I watched on one of your podcasts, you say, yeah, the number synchronicity is cool. You'll see the numbers all day, but wait till you get to the next step. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll see 333, 11, 11, 11 all day.
What does this mean? Yeah.
And that is, to me, it means you're doing the right thing. Like if I'm writing a song, if I'm about to be on your podcast and I see this thing, it lets me know that I'm on the right path. But hey, I'm ready for the next step because although I haven't seen many things in the sky or anything, you've seen other things though, man. Exactly.
You've seen other things.
Absolutely. And it's only the beginning. I don't. You say people say how long they've been researching. Well, we don't end, I'll be doing this till the end of time. It's just like I'm in here to learn. And
I talk about the synchronicities and I talk about the television, and you say something, and then it comes on right on the TV, right as you say it and stuff, and signs and wonders and all these weird things that only make sense to you in that moment, but they mean something. I talk about it all the time because we have to give examples and stuff, and it happens. There's seasons where it happens more than others, and I'll still talk about it, and it hasn't happened in a while. But yesterday, my wife sent me a Snapchat of her being silly, talking about cornholio from Beavis and Butthead, and she was just being silly, and because one of our friends' kid was walking around doing that. I'm cornholio. I need TP for my bunghole. This was Beavis and Butthead, but he said his name's Cornelius. It was cute because he has no idea who Beavis is. He just heard somebody say it. So my wife sent me that snap yesterday. I get home, we're watching TV. We watch this television show, and there's this kid on there. I was like, man, this kid looks like Beavis, man. As soon as I said that, he pulled his shirt over his head. I'm Cornelius. I need TV. I was like, what? And we looked at each other and we just started laughing. I was like, yes, Lord, I'll answer the call. You know what I'm saying? I hear you, Lord, or whatever. Because it happens so much that it becomes comedic, but it lets you know that I'm on the right path, and pay attention to the information that comes through, man. We've seen a lot of people have breakthrough and stuff like that. Whenever that happens. But I'm, if anything, you're on the right path when you're seeing all of this stuff happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes me think of, I've had cross-reference a few times that we potentially might be able to see in the future by a couple days or so. Like our spirit conscious can see, predict or knows what's going to happen. That's why if we are in a serious situation, our other senses, because I believe we have more than our 5 senses, we probably have 7. One of them being instincts and stuff like that. which probably just comes from our spirit consciousness that knows our path more than we do. Because I really do feel like we have our body, and that's just our body. We'll do away with that. We have our soul, and we also have our spirit consciousness that goes from soul to soul with us.
Yeah.
That carries all of our knowledge. So
yeah,
I might have learned this stuff in my last life. But,
yeah, it works like that. But then again, you have to look at the flip side and say, maybe I didn't get that from the future, but maybe it came through like it was from the future, and then I created it and walked in it because I thought that it was going to come. Like in this, when we're talking about manifestation, I think that I'm going to be a successful rapper. I believe it, whether it's coming from an outside source. You should let, when people speak over you blessings, dude, man, people, I've been getting it a lot lately. They'll speak prophecies and blessings, and you're going to touch many people. Like, I feel God when they do that, and it creates it. The power of the spoken word versus like the power of somebody speaking, you know what I'm saying, death over you and destruction and stuff. It's about the power of the spoken word and creating it. But we have to be careful there, man. There's just one scenario we talk about. I have some friends who are psychics, some really, really cool friends. And I guess I'm psychic to an extent, right? It's just the you know what I'm saying, the terminology you want to put on it.
Sure.
But I remember years ago watching Sylvia Brown, which was the world-renowned psychic in the 90s, right? She was on Montel a lot. And she would do readings for people on Montel's show. It was a talk show for people who don't know. People would stand up and they would ask about, you know, my loved one passed away. Do you know if he's in heaven or hell, or we can't find him? And she would give a reading and tell the person where it was. But there was something dangerous that she said that always caught me off guard, man. It messed with me because I know the power of the spoken word. This was a single woman. And she said, well, I find the love of my life. Sylvia Brown stands up and says, yes, but it's going to be your second husband. It's not going to be your first one. Your first one won't work out. And the lady received that. So she spoke that over her. So if she has her first marriage in the back of her head, she's going to think, you know what? Sylvia Brown said that the first one was going to be rocky, and that my second marriage was going to be the love of my life. This is how impressionable people are, and the power of expectation, especially with the Bible. We're talking about people. We're talking about healing. Talking about people wanting to be healed or expecting. Exactly. There was towns that Jesus went in. He couldn't heal anybody. This is so-called the Son of God made manifest in flesh. Going in a town, you're telling me he couldn't heal people? No, because of their doubt and unbelief, he couldn't do nothing because they knew him. They're like, man, this dude's a carpenter.
He's only going to be a carpenter in his hometown. Yep, I always say that Jesus was only a carpenter in his hometown.
Yep. And I've seen that. I've seen that, dude. That's people who look at me like, oh, that's TruthSeekah. He's into Rastafarian. He thinks he's a Jew. He thinks he's this. He's experimenting. He's on mushrooms. Like they got all kind of stuff to say. But when the internet, or you go I've been out of town, and then we're able to see a lot more healings and stuff, and where people don't know you. They don't have
you're not held down
notion.
to them.
Yeah, because it's because of their doubt or unbelief. It's not that we have any power at all. We're just a conduit for you and your faith. He said, because what did Jesus say when he healed people? Because of your faith, get up and walk. Because of your faith, you're going to be made whole. There was people. There was women who had children at home dead. He said, "Would you pray for my son so he'll get up and live?" He said, "Woman, because of your faith, your son's already alive. Go home."
Touch the garment, right?
Yeah, he didn't know. He didn't know that woman was about to touch his garment. All I gotta do is touch it, and I'll be healed. She touched it, she left. I'm healed.
I have no facts for this or whatever, but it really did touch with me. And I was watching a podcast or something where somebody was talking about the placebo effect, and was talking about chemotherapy, and that chemotherapy might just be a self-healing process where people think that this is going to help them, so they start their placebo effect of self-healing, and it's a scary thing. You know, I don't want to say that, you know, that's all chemotherapy is all bad, or that this doesn't help at all.
It plays a big part in it, man.
That to me, as a spiritual person, makes a lot of sense.
Open.
Like, if you want to heal yourself, you want to live, and you're not doubting it, it's there. You've assumed it.
Being open, the healing power, forgiveness.
Absolutely.
That I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was this doctor on. He was talking about back in like the 80s when the AIDS epidemic was real big, and they thought that if you had AIDS, you were going to die back then, right? You essentially were. But the people who were homosexual and open about it They wasn't hiding it from their family, and they were getting treatment. All of these guys had AIDS, and they were going to get treatment. But the gay guys who were open about their homosexuality with their family and friends, and they were okay with who they were, they lived 2 years longer than the people who were hiding it from their family and scared to come out of the closet back in the 80s, just Definitely. Because they were holding that stuff in, and they wasn't open with who they were and okay with being who they were. That's huge, man.
We're like a tuner, you know, and we can vibrate the right way, and sometimes, and it's just, you know, if somebody hits us and a vibration comes through, boom, we can get in tune so quick, but we also can sit there stagnant. But you know,
yep. When you play, it's like a guitar, man. When you play that note, it begins to vibrate, and the same thing with everything is vibration. Everything is in tune, and when you become, I mean, there's power of meditation when you're meditating to a note that's a certain frequency that brings about healing or brings about an aura or a frequency to make you feel a certain type of way, and you listen to that music. That's the power of music. And the power of vibration and the law of spoken word, which is vibration as well. The laws of universal law is dealing with vibration, and everything is moving, and we can influence that in positive ways or negative ways, man.
Absolutely.
Well, dude, before we jump off here, man, you want to go ahead and plug your links and plug your website, your album, all that good stuff. Make sure people download the new song that we actually have together as well.
Absolutely. AllItIz, that's all it is. I never really got to talk about how I got my name.
Let's talk about that right quick. AllItIz.
Back in the day, my name was Dollar Bill in high school and stuff like that. I was going by Dollar Bill. And one day, you know, I was doing my drinking and smoking, and even in, you know, to hardcore drugs like cocaine and stuff like that. I called my best friend, who is my man Beware, who we produce together, make music together. I called him, and I was just going 1,000 miles a minute about our dreams, what we're going to do, and how this music thing is real. And after saying all that, I said, that's all it is. That's all it is, man. And right then and there, I just knew that's all it is.
Take it as a name, yeah.
It continued as people would be telling their stories in music or their stories about whatever, and then they'd say, that's all it is. And I'd say, that's all it is right there. And it's not, and a little bit I used to say, it's not my name, it's your name too, because you describe it when you say that's all it is. And that's what it is, and let alone all that is. That's what I'm trying to figure out the answer to.
That's, you know, the power. What is all it is? That's the power of the spoken word. That's the power of amen. What does the word amen mean? So be it. When you say amen at the end of a prayer or at the end of a sentence, amen.
So be it.
So be it. So mote it be. And you know what I'm saying? Wicca, that's what they say. And the scriptures say, this is powerful too. The scriptures say that the promises of God are yes and amen. And it's referring to whatever you put out into the universe, when you say it's yes and amen, that's God's response back to you. I'm broke, busted, and disgusted. Everybody always hates me. People always talking crap about me. Guess what? They're going to continue to do it. But because the universe responds with, okay, this is what you want, this is what it is. Alchemist, bro.
Absolutely. I'm going to read that. And that's another
a short read too, man. It's a short read.
Just to touch on that really quick, but when I pray, I say now, and just recently too, I've kind of restructured the way I pray a little bit. I say it is my will, and I think that's important to will it. But just to get back to all it is, you know, go check all it is. Sometimes I put a 4 at the end of it, but I'm the only all it is out there. We all just did a song. Yep, we did our song together, We're Not Alone, which is awesome, with touching on a bunch of different aliens, how you know, what you be seeing in the night sky.
I hear the humming.
Yes. I have 2 projects coming out that are going to be touching more on this topic. One is called I Wonder, the EP. It's going to have 4 songs that are all conspiracy research, topic-based. I have another EP coming out called Magic, which has a song on it for my daughter, which is a really kind of a universal good kid song. And I also got a song on there called The Law of Assumption. So everybody gets to check that out within the next month or so.
Yeah, make sure you guys check that out. Check out his album, all that good stuff. And we got to have you on again. I want to do some roundtable stuff where we have more people on and have a roundtable discussion with more people. I'd love to have you in on that.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
All right, brother. You have a good one. We'll connect soon. God bless and shalom. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, TruthSeekah.
All right, brother. Peace, peace.